Hello and welcome to the 2025 baseball season. Wanted to take a moment and talk with a topic that is going to be very important heading into this season. So let's just jump right in. Let's talk about runner lane interference. This is not a new rule. There is a further clarification that is coming from TASO, and with a very specific way that they are wanting us to make sure that we call it for this season. And it is a bit of a change from the way that things have been done in previous years. So for this rule, we're looking in Rule 841G. That's on page 55 if you have a 2025 baseball rule book. It's under the section that is titled, "The batter runner is out when." The batter runner runs outside the 3-foot running lane, which is the last half of the distance from home plate to first base, while the ball is being fielded or thrown to first base. So this should be marked on all baseball fields. It's the 45-foot line, and it's that additional runner's lane that's going towards first base. And there are two qualifiers that follow this rule, and it says this infraction is ignored if it is to avoid a fielder who is attempting to field the batted ball, or if the act does not interfere with a fielder or a throw. The first part of that phrase talks about that if, let's say, the first baseman is coming down and they are attempting to field a batted ball, the batter runner has to avoid the fielder. So if they run around the fielder, then that is why it's saying that this runner's lane is not in play in that situation. And then the second half of the phrase talks about, or if the act does not interfere with a fielder or a throw. That is talking as if the runner is running on the opposite side of the runner's lane as to where the play is going to happen. We'll talk more about this in a second. And importantly here, it says the batter runner is considered outside the running lane if either foot is outside either line. So the inside line, which would be the fair foul line, or the outside line, which should be, again, 3 feet marked on the field. If either foot, one foot, if one foot is out, then they're considered out. The next page has a penalty, which is how we're going to enforce that. And this is where the change comes into play. The runner is out. The batter runner in this situation is out. Interference is called, and the ball is dead immediately. That is the key term in this. Immediately, the ball is going to be dead, and runners shall return to the bases occupied at the time of the pitch. Time of pitch, again, is whenever the pitcher begins his motion delivering the pitch. And even if runners are stealing on the pitch as well, that time of pitch, they have not obtained the next base. And so this is where it gets really important for us to think ahead as to where were the runners when the play initially started at time of pitch. So we got a couple plays for us. And this first one is we're going to watch in its entirety because this is a play from, I think, last season. And this is going to model kind of the way that we have traditionally called this rule. And then, so we'll use this as kind of a before, and then we'll talk about how are instructed to call it again for this season, and so we can kind of see the now and compare the two. So let's take a watch for this video clip.
Wait, what?
Love the commentators in the background that are talking about they have to stay in the line. So here we have a runner's lane interference call. I'm going to play it back here. And so previously in years past, we have this as a delayed dead ball. So right here, we are realizing that, hey, there's runner's lane violation. He is obviously inside fair territory on the last half of going towards first base. But we're not going to call it. Traditionally, we have not called anything until it affects the throw, which it just did. The throw's in the outfield, and then we call time, and then we kill it. However, this year, there's been clarification from TASO that they want us to call this a dead ball immediately at the exact moment that we see this happen, okay? So we'll start this again, and I'll show you when the immediate moment is. Right there. Right where the catcher begins his act of throwing, right here. This is where we have been instructed to call this play dead immediately, This is the catcher's time of throw. Does the catcher have to throw? Yes, there has to be an attempted throw. And whoever is fielding this ball in this situation. So time of throw, this is the moment where they want us to call time. Right here, the umpire is going to call time. We are going to point to the batter runner, say that is runner's lane interference. Batter runner is out. And then R1, the runner who started the play at first base, will go back to first base in this situation. So none of the rest of this play after this would matter. So the throw doesn't matter because the ball is dead immediately at that moment, the time of throw, when the runner is not properly in the runner's lane. Let's take a look at another play just so we can continue to get a better idea of how this is going to be called. The camera angles are a little tough in this play, but I'm just, again, continuing to point out the moment that we would call runner's lane interference.
In the Highlander batting order to face Cody Pfeffer. First pitch bunting up the first baseline. It's a doozy.
And again, I'm trying to freeze exactly where it is, but there's the time of throw. And if you look at the runner's left heel, he is inside fair territory. He is not in the runner's lane. This would be runner's lane interference. Again, time. We don't even wait for the play at first base. We simply call time and the runner is out. We are going to enforce the penalty on this play. And also, this is a good video to show you that his left foot, if you can see on the very edge of the frame, is outside of the runner's lane. His right foot is in the runner's lane. His left foot is out. So, as the rule states, if either foot is outside of the runner's lane, he is outside of the runner's lane. Now, a clarifier for this play. Let's say that the runner had been legal the entire time going towards first base. He's in the runner's lane the whole entire time. The catcher fielders the ball. He's in the runner's lane. He throws the baseball. The runner is in the runner's lane. If the runner leaves the runner's lane at the last moment to touch first base, and he's been legal the entirety of the rest of the time, we're going to let that play go because he is running legally and then he's just trying to step on first base. That's exactly what the runner should do. But if he is illegally out of the runner's lane, he doesn't get that grace period. So again, time of throw, back it up to time of throw. That is the moment that we are going to call this a dead ball immediately. Here's time of throw. The runner is outside of the runner's lane. We're going to kill this play immediately. The runner is out. Let's go to another play.
In the Highlander batting.
Here we go, and watch this one. Good boy. What we see here probably is you're like, wow, this is a routine play. And again, in previous years, yes, we would say that this is a routine play. But if you take a look here, the runner is clearly in fair territory. He is not in the runner's lane at all. He's not even making an attempt to get in the runner's lane. Here is the time of throw right here. Time of throw. The runner is well inside the runner's lane. So this is the moment that we would immediately call time. And we would call the batter runner out and move R1 back to first base for where he was at the time of pitch. We are not going to wait and read true throw. We are not going to wait and see what the play is at first base. We have been instructed that this is an immediate dead ball, runner's lane interference, and we're going to call the batter runner out and move R1 back to first base. We umpires, we are very aware that this is going to be a lot of communication skills are going to be utilized this season for this new way of applying this rule. This rule is not changed. This rule is just simply having us enforce it in a little bit more maybe stricter way than we have done before, but this is the way the rule has been written for many, many, many years, and there's just been a really big clarifying way of us to call it for the 2025 season. I have a diagram here of the runner's lane, and it is, again, the second half of the base path from home to first base. And I'm going to mark up and show us a few scenarios of additional things that we can think about when we think of runner's lane. By the way, if the field does not have this runner's lane right here, the secondary line right there, should be 3 feet away. You have to, umpires, you have to use your best judgment. If there's a nice crisp grass dirt edge line like you see here in this thing, in this image, it's not going to be quite that far. That's a little longer than 3 feet, but we're just going to have to use some judgment. Coaches, if you're watching this, please put a 3 foot runner's lane on your field, chalk it in there, paint it in there, get in there so that way we know exactly what 3 feet is so we can adjudicate this rule properly. There's another situation that is probably not on our radar when we think of runner's lane violation, and that is a drop third strike. So let's imagine that the baseball trickles out over in this area right here. Okay. We have a batter runner who's now running towards first base. They must be in this runner's lane as the throw comes from the catcher towards first base. If the runner is not in the runner's lane, let's say that the runner decides to take a path that goes on this side of foul territory and they're running right there, and then the last minute comes, they are in violation of the runner's lane interference rule, which is the same thing that we would do. We would call time, and then we would make the batter runner be out, and we would put everybody back. This play hasn't really occurred to us as a potential as a potential runner's lane violation, but it is certainly one that could happen. Let's talk now what the rule says about, but there has to be interference in order for this rule to apply. So let's take the scenarios, the bunt scenarios that we've kind of seen before. So let's say that we have a bunt that is fielded right here. And then we have a batter runner who is deciding to run. Wow, you can't see that color. Let's say you have a batter runner that is choosing to run on the outside of this runner's lane right here. Let's say they have 1 foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 1 foot in. The batter runner, is he interfering with the play simply being out of the runner's lane on the opposite side of where the play is? In this scenario, we're going to say no. So because the throw is coming from the inside, if he is running outside of the runner's lane on the outside, we are not going to call this as a runner's lane interference because he actually is not interfering. Likewise, if we have the drop third strike scenario where the ball squibs out over here and we have the batter runner, and the batter runner is running on the inside of the runner's lane right here. If he's on the infield grass, if he's running this side, the throw is coming from the outside of the field in foul territory. So is the batter runner interfering with the play? No, he is not. So again, this is not going to be a runner's lane interference because he's on the opposite side of where the throw is. So hopefully this has been a good refresher for us and some clarifying of how we are going to adjudicate runner's lane interference for the 2025 season and beyond. Umpires, we encourage you to see this play happening in front of you. And once you realize that the runner is out of the lane, call time and enforce the penalty in this rule. Coaches, come out and talk to us. Let's all gain a better understanding of this rule together, but also realize that this is what we are being instructed to call for the season. And everybody realizes that it's most likely a change from the way that we are used to calling it in previous seasons. So that is what we're looking at for runner's lane interference for the year 2025 and beyond. Hope you have a great baseball season.